All right, welcome to another episode. Today we have Daniel. He is the sales manager for mastermind.com. That's Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi's company. He's currently working on growing the team as well as his own online VA business. But Daniel, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Good seeing you.
Yeah, man, good to see you again. So tell me a little bit more about how has it been for you? I know you've been in sales for quite a bit, and I know that when we first met back in, what was it, 2022, 2023, I
Yeah,
think you might have been just getting into the kind of like coaching sales game, and so
yeah,
now you're the manager, and then you're also in the VA space. So tell us a little bit more about kind of your journey and how you got to this point.
yeah. So I started out in the coaching and consulting industry December 2022. That's when we were
Mm,
on the same team.
yeah.
Sold for about a year. Then I was promoted to the team lead, and now I am the sales manager. So I've got 10 closers and eight setters under the team. So just looking to grow that. And like you said, I do have a virtual assistant business as well. So growing that on the side.
I love it, man. But what about before then? Like before you got into like
Ah,
sales, coaching for the sales or sales for the coaching industry. What was
yeah.
that like for you before then?
Yeah, no, I mean, I started selling when I was 16 years old, cell phones, paid my way through school, knocking on doors, selling pest control, and then hiring, managing a team to do that. So I've been in sales my entire life,
Yeah.
did a couple corporate sales jobs right out of school, telecommunications, sold some roofs. So I've sold a lot of things. I landed in the insurance industry and I was there for about 6 years, and that was the industry I was in before I transitioned to the coaching industry.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that because what's interesting is that now, and you've seen it, like insurance has been on the rise, right? Maybe you've seen some of the, influencers. We won't name any names,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's a lot of kind of hype around it. So, first of all, what's the major difference between selling for not just coaching, but also for a brand like Mastermind.com versus
Mhm.
the insurance space? What's kind of the major difference?
Yeah. So selling for, mastermind.com, it's more of it's a transformational sale. Insurance is very much a transactional sale. Now, when you're selling like life insurance, it's a little deeper than that. But really at the end of the day, like when I was in the insurance world, those were the days where you bought direct mail leads, you would call them up, you would drive 100 miles a day going, to people's houses selling. So
Okay,
I think the people that are starting now in the virtual world, because you could sell over the
yeah.
phone now, I think they have a much better position. And I don't know, I might still be in that if, I was selling, over the phone or over Zoom like they are now. But the biggest is, in the coaching, it's helping people make decisions based upon who they want to be. So it's a very much like a deep sale. It's a very much, let's connect on a different level. Let me hear about your challenges. Let me hear about your goals. And then challenge you to make a decision that your future self would want to make versus in the insurance world, especially on the property casualty side, it's like, cool,
Mm,
let's see if we can save you some money on auto insurance or home insurance. And then you pivot
mm,
over to the life. So that's the biggest difference. And once I started selling coaching, I was like, okay, like this is where I want to be. You feel really good about the conversation, even the ones you don't win,
yeah.
as long as you really challenge them, as long as you really opened up their eyes, they typically thank you at the end of the call. And yeah, no one thanks you at the end of an insurance call. Let's just say, let's
I
just
know,
say,
right? It's quite the opposite,
yeah,
I'm sure, right? They're kind of chasing
yeah,
away. So for you, what have been some of the things that have changed in your sales approach through the years? I mean, obviously, maybe more conversational,
yeah,
a different just structure. What are some of
yeah.
those differences?
Yeah. So I would say when I originally started, it was very much just like most people. You get a script and you follow the
Yeah.
script, like word for word, and you just are checking off the process. But then as you learn and as you grow, you understand that you should always have a process, but it's more about the client and you're asking, questions for the client. They're revealing their problem. You're digging in on that. And then based upon what they say, the rest of the conversation flows from there. So started out as a script, as most people should, but then after a while, you realize it's more about the person. And then so like it's just you showing up and being present versus just you showing up and checking boxes off, on a script.
Yeah, man. And so when you think about this game of sales in the coaching space, what what are the patterns of kind of the worst closers versus the
Yeah.
highest level closers? What's the gap?
I would say the biggest gap is the ability to be present on a call, and also just the ability to connect and then really challenge people to go
Mm,
after what they want, because that's part of it. If they were already the person they want to be, they would already be making those decisions. So it's
mm,
very much like a transformational sale. So it's, reading off a script is very transactional. Yeah, you'll get some people who are just ready to rock and roll, but those that see it more as a transformational call. And, as you grow and as you learn, like the skills of tonality and the skills of
mm,
pausing, and then really like having the client lean in on certain words. And then
mm,
the next skill that I've seen, especially on my team, when you drop the price and you're going through the objection handling process, have you done this enough? Do you have enough experience to where your internal world is calm and collected and you're listening and you're following a process? Or are you just, regurgitating objection handling lines? So it's
yeah.
a little bit of everything, but really the best closers I've seen are the ones that are present, the ones that slow down, the ones that really connect with the client. And then once the client, you drop that price, the client's internal world, there's just so much fear and uncertainty coming up. And like, do you have the ability to calm that down? Do you have the ability to get them on the same side of the table? And are they seeing this as a conversation to make the best decision, or are they seeing this as you're trying to get money from me? And that is the biggest difference between I see someone who closes at like 20% versus like 40%.
Yeah, man. So what keeps us, right, not just closers or leaders, but people from being fully present? What do you notice?
I mean, we live in a world of distractions, and if you really study focus, you'll start to realize you in between calls just checking Facebook or checking your
Mm,
phone, like that breaks up your focus. It typically takes like 15 minutes to regain that. So it's putting yourself in an environment and treating your mind and treating your body, well, and so you can show up and be present and be focused. So
mm,
I would say just the people that can remove distractions and just understand that this is a game where, before every call, just slow down, breathe, and then just focus. And as long as you focus on that specific aspect and then focus on really connecting to the client, the calls go well because they can tell if you're distracted. They can tell if you're not listening. They can
yeah.
tell if you're following a script. Like people have been sold so much over the past couple of
It's
years, and I
been,
know everyone says this, but the trust recession is very real. So they're looking for someone that connects to, they can connect with. They're looking for someone who is a leader, and they're looking someone who is not just there for the sale and is very detached.
yeah. And a big principle behind that is connection, being connected, right? Being present to not just be like a robot, but to be connected as a
Yeah.
human. So, on that front, what keeps reps or anybody really from being not just present but connected?
Yeah. I think the reps that don't have a process are always going to be scrambled on the call.
Mm,
Like they just don't understand, or they don't understand why they're asking specific questions. They don't understand the sales process of, you find a problem, challenge, or change, you dig deep, you find a goal, you talk about other solutions that they've tried. You do a really good cost of inaction. You make sure you're on the same page. You make sure they're ready, willing, and able to change. And
mm,
then are you focused enough and did you listen enough to where the pitch of the program, you tailor it towards their problems? And then there's a temp check. And then once you drop the price, it's a game of like lowering, just like your internal system, just being calm, cool, and collected, and then helping them have a discussion, whether it's the best decision for them or not.
yeah. And then what about the identity side, right? Because sometimes maybe newer reps, right? Because they're not experienced, their self-talk or they see themselves as like, I don't know if I can help this person or right, their identity isn't that of a leader, of a closer, or like someone who's a lead. So what have you seen on that side, maybe on like the identity side of someone who's not really being connected and being present?
Yeah, so it starts with someone who is, going to do the internal work on themselves,
Yeah.
and really that's going to help you build the confidence and step into your 2.0 version. And like when you're on that path or you've made a ton of progress there, it's just a lot more alignment to asking
Hmm.
somebody else to do that. And people can just tell, man, like people just have like a BS meter. So like if you're not doing the work yourself, like if you're not challenging yourself, like it's just going to come off as salesy versus this person has been there, this person understands this, and this is a leader I want to follow.
Hmm. And a big piece to that then is this idea of like holding somebody accountable, right? Which you
Yep.
call challenging them. And so I want to make a distinction there because what can happen is then we can get into the territory of a hard closure where it's like, but you
Uh-huh.
said, or like,
Yeah.
now's the time or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
how do you teach your team to find that fine balance between holding someone accountable and then rubbing them the wrong way?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you truly care about the prospect and you truly feel like you can help them, it is your job as a closer to hold them accountable or challenge them based upon
Hmm.
what they said. I think the difference with everything is how you say it. Because you could be on the call and be like, well, earlier, Luis, you said this, and now you're saying this. What's really going on? And they're just going to be sales resistance is going crazy versus like, Luis, like earlier you said you were struggling with A, B, C, and D. And you've been trying this for the past 6 to 8 months, which is causing you to lose sleep, which is really just draining your day-to-day life. And you also said that you were willing to do whatever it takes to make a change. So knowing that's what we said earlier, and now it seems we're saying different things like, let's just put everything out on the table. Like, what's really going on? Is it just a little bit of fear? Is it just a little bit of uncertainty? Or let's just have a conversation here. So I think it's very much how you approach it, but it's also very much like, do you actually care? Because like when you care and you're curious, they can pick up on that as well.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm sure you've been there because I have. So there's times when we really do care, but then the leadership or our sales goals or our KPIs are pressuring us to
Yeah.
perform and to
Mhm.
hit a goal, right? So how do you manage that, and then how do you teach your reps to manage that as well, even though we do care?
Yeah. And especially if you need the money, that's difficult because you need the sale, you need the money. So that's another challenge in itself. It's just, understanding that I'm just going to run the process no matter what. I'm going to give it my all no matter what and just let the numbers fall where they may. And when
Hmm.
you focus on that mindset day in and day out, you either hit the numbers, and if you don't hit the numbers for whatever reason, just understand like, okay, maybe I need to get better. Maybe my skill set isn't there. Maybe I need to do more call reviews. Maybe I need to get extra help. And really, at the end of the day, I just think if you show up and you're like, I'm curious, I'm going to be a confident leader on the call and I'm going to do everything I can to follow the process. The numbers really do fall into place from there.
Yeah, man. And so you brought up a couple things there, right? Being curious, being confident. Earlier we talked about being connected. What are some other patterns that you notice need to be in place for a rep or anybody really in sales to perform consistently? Because I think that's another big
Uh-huh.
factor is
Yeah.
consistency in the long term. What are some of those habits and patterns you notice?
Yeah, so I would say if you've got habits and routines and patterns to help yourself grow and stretch yourself, like that's the key. Because if
Mhm.
you go and make $20,000 in a month, but your identity is sitting at like a $10,000 a month closer, the next month you can go right back down. And if you're a closer that's going up and down, there's no consistency. So are you following the process? Are you consistent with your routines every single day? Like, are you working out? Are you taking care of your body? Are you sleeping? Like, what are you doing to be as consistent as you can? Now, at the end of the day, it's very much like it's just like baseball. Baseball, if you hit 300, 3 out of 10, 30%, you're in the Hall of Fame. Very similar, like in this industry. And like, what do they do every single day? They go to bed at the
Mhm.
same time, or they go to bed at the same time. They wake up at the same time. They're dialed in with their nutrition, like they're getting coaching, they're watching tape, they're doing all the different things. So if you want to perform at the level of an athlete, you have to live your life as if you are an athlete in the
Yeah.
sales world.
Yeah, yeah, it's the idea of like high performance, and it's interesting how sometimes from the outside looking in, people are like, "Well, it's just sales. You just get on the call, you talk to them, and if they close, they close. It's a numbers game." But now we're getting into really like, what does it take to be a high performer? right? Like
Hmm.
what
Yep.
identity, what habits, what routines. So from your perspective, if you were to break it apart, what's most important initially to really focus on? Is it the belief, the psychology, or is it the skill set and like the tactical?
Yeah. At the beginning, I think everyone should develop the skills and the tactics at the
Mm,
beginning. But if you just focus on skills and tactics, you're going to top out real quick. So it is a mindset game and a skill set game. And at the end of the day, my belief system is the mindset is more important because someone who's dialed in, someone who's connected, someone who's focused is always growing. You're always going to get better. But at the same time, like if you have none of the fundamentals, if you have no process, like you're not going to be able to control a call or control the frame. And I think that's step one. So, if I were to build a perfect rep, it'd be like, okay, come in, here's the script, you learn this, you learn A, B, C, and D. And then as you evolve and grow, we're going to continue adding tools to your tool belt.
yeah, man. And it's crazy this
Mhm.
concept of like a perfect closer because now when we talk about AI and this idea of like if and when
Mhm.
AI sales agents would replace a human, right? Like from your
Yep.
perspective, just broadly speaking, what are your thoughts on that? And then maybe we can get into the possible timelines, time frames, or what are you noticing as
Yeah.
some patterns? But what are your
Yeah.
thoughts around that idea?
So anything transactional is going to be replaced by AI. Anything that's just like a very surface level conversation, setting a call or, quoting someone on
Mm,
the transactional level, like AI is at a point to where it wasn't there, 6 months ago, but man, even the voice AI and the latency is getting so good to where it's like, and just we see there's companies out there who have AI setters, that are just through the DMs and they're crushing it. So transactional wise, it's already there, let's just embrace that. But when it comes to making a decision for like a higher ticket offer, like an 8K, a 10K, a 12K, we are nowhere near people, at least in a broad range, like feeling comfortable purchasing that from AI or
yeah.
purchasing that from technology. There's always concerns, there's always uncertainties. So I would say you're safe, when it's a higher ticket package. I don't think we're anywhere near that because I can't see myself
Mm,
giving an AI bot $10,000 no matter what. Like there's
yeah.
just no way. But what I will do is I'll listen to a call, I'll book a call to find out more information through an AI bot. So that's what I see. And just as everything, the cream always rises to the crop. And if you're someone who is a really good transformational salesman, if you're really good at connecting, if you're really good at, with your tonality and your pausing and then getting them to lean in, like I think your
Mm.
skill is always going to be valuable in the marketplace.
Yeah, and so it's a bit of a shot in the dark, but when do you think these tools can reach a level of challenging the safety
Yeah.
of a rep or someone who's more
Yeah.
transformational?
Yeah. The day that that happens is going to be, there's going to be a massive change in the marketplace because at the end of the day, like it'll automate all the tasks, all the low level things it can do, all the transactional things it can do. Now, in the world of high ticket, 8 to 10K, like, maybe it does get good enough to do that. And maybe it will be time to get into an industry where you're selling 100K packages or 200K. And then it's like, that's a new level of trust. So I don't know. That would be crazy if it does get to that point. We're just not quite there yet, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. And so regardless of that, how can leaders and closers prepare themselves to not be replaced, but instead maybe use AI as a tool to advance the progress?
Yeah, I mean, they should be using AI right now. You should be using it for email sequences, for responses, for follow-up emails based upon what they said in the call. So you need to use those tools right now. Now, that's a good question. So outside of like using the tools, I think that maybe the best thing to do for people to make sure they keep valuable in the marketplace is just leadership and
Mm,
communication. Because what can AI not do at least right now? It's that connection with the human being, that's
mm,
leadership. like so those skills like are just going to be more valuable and more valuable. And as you grow, it's like, okay, like let's just say AI does replace all closers, and I hope it doesn't get there.
Okay, yeah.
Then the next step is like, okay, it's not going to replace people speaking from stage. It's not going to replace people influencing, in a one to
Hmm.
many sale. So that's where I see, but I would just say like as long as you're working on your skill set and your mindset and you're growing as a person every single day, you have nothing to worry about. It's the ones that don't do that are,
Hmm.
eventually going to be replaced.
Yeah, man, it's this idea of like being complacent, right? Or maybe yeah, not taking it serious, right? So from your perspective and the best leaders you've interacted with, how are they using AI currently? I know you used a few of them, but what else are you seeing in terms of how to really maximize a tool like AI right now?
Yeah, so I think all the best leaders are looking at their organizations and just asking themselves the questions, what can I automate? What can I do right away? And when you look at certain things like emails, text messages, like DM setting, anything along those lines, they're going to implement AI because AI never sleeps. It's really inexpensive to implement. You just have to have someone overlooking the process. But I also think that the people and companies that are going to win are the ones that don't swing so much in the AI, the ones that can utilize AI for what it is, but also give that human touch. And I
Mm.
always give this example, like I was calling up to book a hotel last week and I couldn't talk to a real person.
Oh,
I
wow.
went through so many different prompts and I wanted to call a different hotel down the street because I was so frustrated that I was just talking to AI and technology. So I think about that, and I think there's going to be companies out there that are like, yep, so we've embraced this, but really the difference between us and them is the human touch. You'll always
Mm.
talk to a human here. We'll always listen to you. We'll always
Mm.
connect to you. So I think there's going to be a pendulum swing back and forth because, I mean, at the end of the day, like the human connection and, talking to someone, I don't think that's ever going to be replaced.
Yeah, right. And so we would hope so, because as well, there's a lot of movement happening, right, in certain companies, big tech companies, for example, and this idea of like human dignity comes to the forefront, right? It's
Mm.
like I don't know if you
Yeah.
saw, won't name them, but huge company let go of like thousands and thousands of people through an
Yeah.
email, right? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, by
Yeah.
the way, like turn in your badge. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, this is incredible. So, what are your thoughts on? Although, of course, I know you work with a very connected company. I can almost guess your ideas, but like, yeah, man, what are your thoughts on that? And then how can we keep human dignity like at the forefront, in spite of AI and technology?
Yeah. I think whoever cares about the customer and whoever the customer feels like cares about them the most is going to win. And that's going to be getting new deals. And that's also going to be retention. And, anyone that's been in the business a while understands that it's not just getting the customer the first time. It's what's the next thing we can offer and what is the lifetime value. And I think not only it'll be easier, like, with the human connection, getting the client, it's also the lifetime value of, are you giving them a call? Are you connecting with them? Are you asking how you can help? And what I could say is just from, managing the team over there, some of the most effective management aspects or some of the most, effective things I've ever done is just leaving a voice note and saying how much I care and
Mm,
how I can see that they're trying and encourage them. And that will move the numbers more than any tactics or any sales training. So as long as human beings are driven that way, like there's always going to be a balance. And it's going to be interesting to see if there's pushback, from people who go everything automated. As the example I just gave you, like
hmm.
I literally wanted to go to a new company because I couldn't talk to someone. I just
Frustrated,
wanted
yeah.
to ask a couple quick questions. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, that's the thing is I think like because we're selling to humans, like we need to keep that front and center and just really honoring them essentially, which is kind
Mhm.
of weird to even say, right? Like now that we think
Yeah.
about that. But I know another big thing you talked about is like email sequences and text messages, but how underrated is follow-up in a social media driven world where all we see are
Yeah.
like the one call closes and the pay in fulls? Like how important or how
Yeah.
underrated is follow-up?
Yeah, no, with us being in a trust recession, more people need more touches in order to buy. And
Hmm.
like, I know they throw numbers out there, but the last time I checked, it was like 5 to 6 touches. So either you're doing all of that on the front end and then closing, or you need to make that up somehow.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, like if a human being is going through a follow-up process versus AI, who is literally going to follow up with them consistently for years at a time,
Okay.
the human process is probably going to fall off after, from what I've seen, 3 or 4 attempts. But like with
Mm-hmm.
AI being relentless and not having any feelings and not caring whether they're annoying someone or not, I think AI and follow up is going to be huge, or at least getting people back on the call because, not many people follow up for a year, for 18 months, but AI will because AI doesn't care.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing too, is like I'm sure you've seen the best reps do care enough to check in on someone for many, many
Hmm.
months. Do you have a story like that where you had like a long-term follow-up thing and then it ended up working out?
Yeah, no, I think the longest I've stayed with the client is a little over a year, like
Mm,
13 months. And it was just, we had such a good conversation. She wanted to do it. She just wasn't quite there yet. So I just knew this was going to be like a long game. So like every single month, I would just send her some value. I'd be like, I know you're struggling with marketing. Check this out. I know
mm,
this client was struggling with marketing and look at this testimonial and just dripping over 12 months and just staying top of mind and then getting her back on the phone, she was ready to make a decision. So I think 13 months is the longest for me. I'm sure there's people out there that have longer, but that's a long time of following
yeah,
up. So that would be the first call and at least 12 touch points. So that would be 13 touch points
yeah.
before a
I
deal goes
know.
through.
Yeah, and nowadays like I've heard 7 to 9 touch points, so it's kind
Yep.
of like it's getting
Yep.
it's getting bigger, and of course with
Yep.
speed to lead, that's another big thing as well, or people sometimes just filling out applications randomly, and you do get a hold of
Yep.
like, yeah, what is this, and how is this
Yeah.
like relevant for
Yeah.
me? So how do you manage the mindset of frustration for yourself, for your
Mhm.
closers, to not allow that to get in the way, because it could feel like, damn, I have to do all that just for $200 or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like what's
Totally.
the yeah, what's the antidote to the frustration?
Yeah. I don't know if there's an antidote, but like if you've ever read the book like Letting Go, really just getting into a process, maybe like growing spiritually and just understanding
Mm,
that like when you put in the reps and you just have faith to do the right things every single day, it will work out. And I remember when we were working at Mastermind, you would always say, good things are coming, good things are coming. So it was just your mindset. And that actually left a pretty big impression on the team because at the end of the day, like we can either let it go and follow the process or, let it emotionally wreck us. And like at the end of the day, it's not good professionally, but it's also not good for your own life because there's stuff outside of work, are those emotions affecting your relationships with your wife, with your kids? Like what else is that
yeah.
affecting? So I think it's another skill set just to learn how to let it go and just be like, I follow the process. I did everything I could. And at the end of the day, let the chips fall where they may, because we can't control whether they say yes, but we can control like how we react in our internal state.
Yeah, man, and I know you brought up like baseball earlier and things like that. I see obviously, football back there, but what
Yeah.
are your personal habits that allow you to let go?
Yeah. So I think it starts with sleep for me. So like I go to bed super early. It's kind of crazy now. Like I'm 38, so like this is how I live my life now. Way
Okay.
different than 10 years ago, but like 8:30 bedtime means no food after 5:30, which means no liquid after 6:30, which means no screen after 7. I've got like
Mm,
specific rituals. I have a supplement stack that I take. Yeah, like I just get myself in a position to rest, get up at the same time, go to the gym every single day, work out, really just listen to something inspirational or something like educational. Then I come back and bunch of caffeine, a lot of coffee, maybe some reading, maybe going through the Bible and getting some like,
yeah.
spiritual aspect of my day started and just running that and then getting to work. But at the end of the day, there's also stuff that comes up throughout the day. So
Mm,
like in my calendar, I just have like a 2.0 check-in like every four
mm,
hours and it just comes up and all I do is just sit there and I just breathe. I just breathe for a minute. It just like puts me back in a good state of mind because as you know, in sales, it's
yeah.
frustrating. There's ups and downs and whether you're in sales or sales management, like you're pretty much putting fires out all day long. So
Yeah.
it's like setting yourself up and like during your alone time and your quiet time, taking advantage of that. And then like throughout the day when you're putting out fires and emotions are going crazy, just intentionally pausing just to get back
Mm,
in that focus and just understand, be like, whatever this feeling is, like just allow it. Just allow it.
mm,
Now that I've allowed it, just let it go. What can I
mm.
do next to improve this? And at the end of the day, that's really all you can do.
Yeah, man, that's so important. So you brought up like some supplement stacks and breath work to some extent. What are some other things specific, or if you can go deeper into your stack and how
Yeah.
has that actually helped you?
Yeah, no. So I go through a specific YouTube playlist. I'm more than happy to send you, at the end of our call, and it just like it puts me in a good state.
Mm,
Magnesium is really like what I
okay.
take, like a specific type. There's a couple other things, but also my thermostat is set to 68 degrees every single day. I have blackout
Mm,
curtains, so it's kind of just like a whole process
yeah.
that and at the end of the day, you just realize that sleep is like the biggest performance enhancing drug like on the planet. So if like someone just doesn't have the energy or is not performing, like fix this first, like study, understand how it worked, put yourself in the best environment and position to
Mm,
knock this part out. And then I would say the second part is like, what are you doing right in the morning? Like, are you moving? Are you working out? Are you breathing? And it's almost just like how you end the day and how you start the day. If you're very intentional with those, in between everything takes care of itself.
mm-hmm. Yeah, and the important part there is being intentional, right? Like you brought up distractions earlier, right? And you
Yeah.
brought up like even just as a leader, we were constantly being pulled in these different directions. So for you and also maybe bringing in this idea of faith, like how important is it to be still and um you haven't mentioned this word, but really to trust, right? To
Hmm.
to just kind of
Yeah.
like really lean into your faith, but being still.
Yeah. No, I mean, being still is everything. Being still means you can think clearly because, like, if you're not still, if you're not letting go, if you're not calm and collected, you're going to be making decisions based upon emotions versus just stepping back and, like, actually thinking things through and making the correct decision for that time.
Yeah. And it's wild, right? Because it sounds like super straightforward, but what is like
Yeah.
from your perspective the thing that keeps us from making that a priority and being intentional about like stillness?
Yeah, I would just say the day to day, gets super busy for everyone.
Mm,
I also think there's just so many different distractions out there. Like,
mm,
everyone is on their phone, everyone's on social media. I get it. That's not going to change. And social media is great for like lead gen and a lot of different
mm,
things and business connections. But at the end of the day, it's you being intentional and understanding like that there's trade-offs with everything. Like if you're on your phone all day, like you're not going to be focused. If you're on your phone before you go to bed, it's going to take you a lot longer to go to sleep. So, I think it's being intentional and setting up the routines and the habits on a day-to-day basis, and everything else takes care of itself.
yeah, man, and that's the thing right there is I think the consistency around that and then just implementing it, living into it.
Yeah,
um when you don't hit your routine or when you don't hit your habits, how do you bounce back? Because I know that's another big thing around this idea of like
yeah,
perfectionism, right? It's like I know what to do and there's all this kind of like
yeah,
perfect plan, but
yeah,
we're human, we're not AI, right? So
yeah.
sometimes we'll miss, but how do you navigate that?
Yeah, just don't miss 2 days in a row is my
Mm,
thing. There's always going to be bad days. There's always going to be bad hours. There's always going to be setbacks in the process. But my thing is like, if you missed the gym today, if you didn't hit your diet today, if like whatever happened today, just change it and just have a better day tomorrow. Because I
mm,
just feel like missing a workout's never going to hurt. Missing your diet for a day is never going to hurt. But like when you bleed that into 2 days, now, in my opinion, that's more of a choice. So it's just understanding that there's going to be like forks in the road. And a lot of people, I don't, but a lot of people schedule just free time in their schedule to where it's like, I
gotcha.
know stuff's going to get crazy and complicated. So I'm just going to give myself some open space on my calendar. I particularly don't do that, but that's pretty effective as well from what I hear.
Yeah, man. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, when I was at Mastermind, that's what I would used to do. I would have my lunchtime, so 12 to 1, and then 4 to 5 I would block out, but I would stop working like at 7,
Yep.
so
Yep.
there are
That's
some
right.
trade-offs there. And it's being
Yep.
intentional.
Yep. That's right.
It's just being like really clear on what do we want, what are we willing to sacrifice as well, right? Like
Yeah.
who do we want to be as we grow into these next levels. So on that note, man, as we start to wrap up, when you think about this idea of growth, like for you, like who's Daniel beyond sales and beyond the business? Like what does that next level look like for you?
Yeah. So for me, I think eventually it's going to be like, starting my own business, like doing my own thing. Like I do have a VA business like on the side and, that could scale, but I think eventually it's just, learn with the skills that I have in sales and management, just taking that and creating my own offer and doing my own
Mm,
thing. Everyone wants to do that. There's pros and cons of each. Everyone wants to be the entrepreneur, but I think that's just itching in me right now. It's where it's
mm,
like, I know I have certain skill set. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at. I would reach out and find a partner to do the things I'm not good at just because I understand how that works and then
mm,
just grow. And like your income and your business is never going to grow past the level of your identity. Ed Milet talks about it all the time. It's just like that thermostat. If you're
mm,
running on 92, you will run on 98 for like a short time, but sure enough, you're going to go right back to 92 unless you increase your identity. So it's just learning, it's just growing. And the thing is with AI, it's tough because you don't have no
mm.
idea like what's going to
Yeah,
change in the next 5 years. So like you
yeah,
could be dead set on this idea, and then in 8 months later, it's like, oh, okay, this idea is not going to work. So I think it's just the path of mastery and just understanding like just as long as you're doing the right things, at the right time, and most importantly, you're measuring your progress on a week to week basis, and you have the ability to pivot, like that's the success.
yeah.
So many people are like, I'm gonna do this, and then they're like, I started doing this, and then realized a month in, I don't even want to do that. And it's
Yeah.
like, okay, and that happens because human beings are run on emotions. Sometimes stuff looks good, sometimes there's shiny object syndrome, and it's just about pivoting and continuing to move
Mm.
forward.
Yeah, man, that's the key right there. Momentum. We haven't used that word all interview,
Yeah,
but it's really building, massive
yeah,
momentum.
yep. And it's just like if you move forward every single day or do your best to move forward every single day, like that is going to compound over time. And
Hmm.
at the end of the day, everyone's always worried about the end result, but it's like
Yeah.
if you were better than you were yesterday or last week, you're still better off. So just focus on that. And then you're going to look up a year from now, 2 years from now, you're going to be blown away, by the
Hmm.
progress.
That's right, man. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe, and it feels like yesterday, but recently, I don't even want to use that word, but I know recently you might have gotten married, or was that
Yeah.
something that
Yeah.
happened?
Yeah, yeah, I got married last year.
Yeah.
So, anniversary's coming up next week, so time
Wow.
flies.
See, that's what I'm
Yep.
like, man. I know it was like seems like yesterday, but so to kind of wrap up on that, because also a lot of the audience members that we have here, they're parents, they're big on legacy, they're big on impact, they're big on, of course, business, finances, but more importantly, this idea of like, values, right? And just like
Yep.
leaving that to the next generation, especially when confronted with this fast-paced lifestyle that
Mhm.
is, AI, social media, tech, and all that stuff. So for you, as you are growing into a husband and all these other sides of life, what are some new patterns that you're picking up? Some new maybe good habits that you're leaning into?
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as I got married, I realized real quick it's not about me anymore. So making decisions, it's always like, is this in the best interest of us and our family? So it's made me a lot, more selfless as a person.
Mm,
And when you say legacy and trust, like that's so important because like if you want to win in the long term, if you want to build a family, it's not doing the right thing one day, it's doing the right thing consistently over a period of time because you can break trust in an instant with a couple of bad decisions and it's just being grounded. And it's also just very much like knowing what you want. And
yeah.
then, just having like a North Star and then following that consistently.
Yeah, man. And that brings us back to this idea of clarity, right? Just like
Yeah.
once you're really clear on like what you really want, and it's usually difficult when we set these big goals, right? And even marriage, I'm sure you've looked at like divorce rates and all these crazy things, but at the end of the day, what usually keeps those relationships alive is that idea of like the partnership, right? Like the
Yep.
collaborative
That's
effort.
right. Yep. That's right.
So from your perspective, as you move forward as maybe as a parent one day, like what is the legacy that you want to leave and what does that look like for you?
Ah, that's a deep question. That is a deep question. The legacy I want to leave. Um, I would say a legacy of somebody who cared. I would say
Mm.
a legacy of someone who pushed me to be better. Um, a legacy of someone who like always treated people right and just leaving like the world off better, than
Mm.
the way I found it. I know that sounds cliche, but off the top of my head, that's what's coming to my heart right now.
Yeah, man. And so, that's the thing, like we rarely think about that and
Yeah,
it
yeah, that's a good question. Yeah.
and it's quite unfortunate because I was naturally, on IG stories and I read one of my I'm part of a brotherhood and one of the brothers the older guy, he lost his nephew, right? And so
Wow.
in the picture he put like the name, but then underneath it said like he was this and that, and I was like, yo, that's crazy, right? Like, you know, it's brutal, but let's be honest, like most people seeing that, they're probably not gonna remember like every little detail or whatever, but
Okay.
they might catch a glimpse of like who was this individual and who was this soul in that
Okay.
instant of a story. It's usually like 2 seconds and you're on to the next. So yeah, man, that's been very top of mind for me. I mean, my son's
Yeah.
7 now, and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that for my next level, it's this idea of like leadership, and legacy, man. So, last question as we wrap up here for you, if this was the last message that you got to broadcast because the internet went down forever, what would be
Yeah.
that final message to the audience?
I would just say just focus on progress, and I know Tony says this all the time, progress is happiness. When you are moving towards getting better, you will feel better about yourself. And it's just prioritize that. So just progress. It doesn't even matter how much progress it is. That's the crazy part. You could, just do a little bit every single day, a little bit every week. But I think that's the key is just like growth and giving and progressing in your journey.
I hear you, brother. And then we can loop in the idea of grace and being,
Yeah.
letting ourselves,
Yeah. That's right.
let go of perfectionism, but we'll be here forever, brother. But with that said, I appreciate you. Thank you for the audience for tuning in, and I'll
Yeah.
see you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Luis.
Awesome, brother.